Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. You know, we love music here.
We do.
And so today we're taking a closer look at the music of the king himself, Elvis Presley.
That's right, the one and only.
Now, we all know Elvis had tons and tons of hits, so many that you could fill up a jukebox like 10 times over.
Easy.
But what we're looking at today isn't just another best of Elvis list.
Nope, not at all.
We're going to be looking at an article that was published on February 27, 2025 from Gold Radio.
Yes, Gold Radio's recent ranking of Elvis's top 25 songs.
Exactly. And we're going to be uncovering some fascinating stories behind these iconic tracks.
Absolutely.
The kind of stuff that will make you the Elvis expert at your next trivia night.
That's the goal. And just
Yeah.
to really put Elvis's impact into perspective,
Yeah.
John Lennon famously said before Elvis, there was nothing.
Wow.
And, Elvis's impact on music is undeniable. I mean, he's still the biggest selling solo artist of all time,
Amazing.
even decades after his last performance.
Unbelievable. All right, so
Let's dive in.
let's kick off this rock and roll party.
Okay.
The Gold Radio list kicks off with That's All Right.
Great song.
It is, which launched Elvis's career way back in 1954.
1954.
Now, we know Elvis was known for his covers,
Yes.
and this one is no exception. It was originally a blues song by Arthur Crudup,
Uh-huh.
but Elvis didn't just cover it.
No.
He completely reinvented it.
He did. He absolutely transformed it.
Yeah.
He took this blues song and injected it with this youthful energy and a raw, almost defiant spirit.
Yes.
And that's really what made it such a game changer.
It really is.
It became a blueprint for the rock and roll sound that would define a generation.
It
It
did.
really did.
Now, we can't talk about Elvis without mentioning those iconic movie soundtracks.
Of course not.
So let's take a look at two hits that really showcase his range.
Yeah.
Jailhouse Rock and Love Me Tender.
Okay, two very different songs.
They are.
Jailhouse Rock is just pure Elvis energy.
It really is.
A rock and roll anthem that captures that rebellious spirit of the 1950s.
Yeah.
It's interesting to note that this song, along with many others in his films, were specifically written for him,
Okay.
often incorporating elements of rockabilly and blues that he was known for.
And on the other hand, we have Love Me Tender.
Yes, which takes a much softer approach.
So much soft.
You wouldn't think that a ballad based on a Civil War era tune would become an Elvis classic,
Right.
but it did.
It did.
And that's where Elvis's genius shines through.
For sure.
He could take any song from any genre
Yeah,
and make it his own.
that's true.
Love Me Tender, with its heartfelt lyrics and this gentle melody,
Uh-huh.
revealed a vulnerability and romanticism that really resonated with audiences.
I can see that.
And it broadened his appeal beyond the rock and roll crowd.
Broadened his appeal.
Yeah.
Speaking of broadening his appeal, didn't Elvis also get songwriting credits on some songs he didn't actually write,
He did, that's right.
especially in his films?
Especially in his films, there was some controversy surrounding that.
Oh, really?
It seems that Colonel Tom Parker, his manager, was very keen on having Elvis's name on as many songs as possible,
Okay.
whether he actually wrote them or not.
Interesting.
This practice wasn't unusual in the music industry at the time,
Okay.
but it did raise questions about authorship and creative control.
Uh-huh.
For instance, Love Me Tender was actually adapted by Ken Darby from the old folk song Ora Lee.
Wow.
Although Elvis didn't write the lyrics, the song is still very deeply associated with him,
Now,
becoming one of his signature ballads.
Interesting how that all works. A little bit of a gray area.
Yeah, a little bit.
But those moody years, for all their success, it seemed to lead to a bit of a lull in Elvis's career.
Yeah, it did seem that way.
And then came 1968 and his legendary comeback special.
Ah, yes, the comeback special.
It really was a pivotal moment, wasn't it?
It reintroduced Elvis to the world,
It did.
showcasing his raw talent and stage presence after years of being typecast in Hollywood films.
And the song that really stole the show was If I Can Dream. Powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And its connection to the social and political climate of the time is just fascinating.
It is fascinating. The song was actually inspired by Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. And it reflected Elvis's own growing awareness of the social issues facing America at the time.
It makes sense.
It was a bold move, especially for someone who had built a career on being a somewhat apolitical figure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even more surprising is that Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis's manager, initially didn't want him to perform it.
I know.
He felt that it was too far removed from Elvis's image.
It's interesting how sometimes the artist's instinct can be stronger than the manager's calculations.
Yeah.
Elvis felt strongly about the message of the song,
Right.
and his insistence on performing it really paid off.
It did.
If I Can Dream became a highlight of the comeback special.
It did.
proving that Elvis was more than just a rock and roll heartthrob.
Right.
He was an artist who could connect with his audience on a deeper level.
He really was. That comeback special paved the way for what many consider Elvis's most successful period.
Yes.
His Vegas years.
The Vegas years.
We're talking Suspicious Minds, The Wonder of You, and Burning Love.
Classics.
Songs that brought a more mature and sophisticated sound to his repertoire.
They did. Those Vegas years were a spectacle, and his music perfectly reflected that era.
Yeah.
Take Suspicious Minds, for example. It wasn't an Elvis original.
Okay.
It was written by Mark James, whose own version didn't really do much on the charts.
So Elvis took a song that flopped and turned it into a chart topper.
Precisely, his interpretation with his soulful vocals and that dramatic arrangement transformed Suspicious Minds into a timeless classic.
It really is a classic.
Showcasing his ability to breathe new life into existing material.
Yeah.
It also marked a shift in his musical direction,
Okay.
embracing a more soulful, pop-infused sound that resonated with a wider audience.
Interesting. Speaking of giving credit where credit is due, I heard Elvis was actually very polite, even as a superstar.
He was. He absolutely was.
Is that true?
Absolutely. There's a great story about how when he wanted to record The Wonder of You, which was a hit for Ray Peterson at the time, Elvis insisted on asking Peterson's permission first.
Wow.
He didn't have to do that.
No?
He could have just recorded the song and released it.
Right.
But he chose to be respectful of his fellow musician.
That's pretty remarkable for someone at the height of their fame.
It is.
It's like Elvis had a certain code of conduct, even in a cutthroat industry.
He did. He was known for his generosity and humility.
Yep.
He was raised in the South, and those values of respect and courtesy really stayed with him throughout his life.
Okay, so we've touched on some of his early hits, the movie soundtracks, the comeback, and the Vegas years.
We've covered a lot of ground.
Now we have to talk about the songs that have truly stood the test of time,
Okay.
the ones that everyone knows, the ones that have become part of the cultural fabric.
Right.
Songs like Can't Help Falling in Love, Heartbreak Hotel, and of course Hound Dog.
Are classics.
These are the songs that cemented Elvis's legacy as a cultural icon.
They are played constantly on the radio, featured in countless films and TV shows, and covered by artists of all genres.
What's really fascinating is that Can't Help Falling in Love, with its timeless melody and heartfelt lyrics, actually has roots that go way back.
It does.
Its melody is based on a French love song from 1784 called Plaisir d'amour.
Incredible how a melody can transcend centuries and languages.
It really is.
And Elvis's version, with his tender vocals and lush orchestration, transformed it into one of the most beloved love songs of all time.
I agree.
It's a song that's been played at countless weddings, funerals, graduations. It's marked some of life's most important moments.
Heartbreak Hotel, on the other hand, is a song that seems so iconic it's hard to imagine it was ever controversial.
I know you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
The BBC actually banned the song initially, and a British music magazine called NME gave it a scathing review, calling it a disgrace to the name of music.
Talk about a misfire in judgment.
It just goes to show that even the biggest hits can face resistance, especially when they challenge the musical norms of the time.
Yeah.
Heartbreak Hotel, with its raw emotion and bluesy sound, was a departure from the polished pop music that dominated the charts in the mid-1950s.
And clearly the public disagreed with those critics.
They did.
Heartbreak Hotel became a massive success, topping the charts on both sides of the Atlantic.
It could.
It solidified Elvis's status as a global phenomenon.
Heartbreak Hotel is a testament to Elvis's ability to tap into raw emotion and express it in a way that resonated deeply with audiences. It captured the angst and loneliness of a generation, and it helped establish rock and roll as a legitimate musical genre.
And then, of course, there's Hound Dog.
Yes, Hound Dog.
This one wasn't an Elvis original either.
It wasn't. It was originally a blues song performed by Big Mama Thornton.
Oh, wow.
But Elvis, he took that song and he made it his own.
He did.
He transformed Hound Dog from this slow, bluesy lament into a high-energy rock and roll anthem. His performance with suggestive lyrics and those hip-shaking moves, it was electrifying and controversial.
I bet.
Further solidifying his image as a rebellious and provocative figure.
I could see that.
He turned a relatively obscure blues song into one of the defining anthems of rock and roll.
It's amazing how he could take these songs from other genres and infused them with his own unique style and energy.
Exactly. He didn't just cover them, he reinvented them,
Yeah.
adding his own signature blend of rockabilly blues and gospel.
It's really unique.
And that's what made him such a groundbreaking artist.
He really did.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is fascinating how Elvis could take a song and completely transform it,
Yeah.
make it almost unrecognizable from the original.
You know, it's funny you should mention that because this gold radio list actually features some deeper cuts.
Oh,
Songs that might not be as instantly recognizable as, say, Hound Dog,
okay.
but they really showcase Elvis's versatility,
Uh-huh.
like Kentucky Rain, for instance.
Kentucky Rain.
Yeah.
Yeah, a fantastic example of Elvis's ability to move beyond just rock and roll
Right?
and explore other genres.
It really is.
It's a country soul ballad,
Yeah.
released in 1970,
Okay.
right at the start of a new decade for him.
And it's such a departure from those early rock and roll hits.
It is.
It's got this melancholy, almost cinematic feel to it.
It does. The song tells a story, too.
Oh,
A man searching for his lost love in a relentless downpour.
wow.
The lyrics are so vivid, almost like a mini-movie playing out in your mind.
Yeah.
And Elvis's vocal performance just filled with emotion, conveying both the desperation and tenderness of the story.
Yeah.
It's a song that really reveals his depth as an artist.
It does. And then there's an American trilogy,
Oh, yes.
which has to be one of his most ambitious recordings.
Absolutely.
This medley of 3 American folk songs is so powerful,
It is.
especially when you consider the time period and what was happening in America then.
An American trilogy is more than just a song. It's a statement. It weaves together Dixie, the battle hymn of the Republic, and all my trials,
Wow.
representing different aspects of American history and culture.
Yeah.
And Elvis's performance of this medley, particularly during his live shows, was incredibly moving. He managed to capture the complexity of American identity,
Okay.
the struggles, the hopes, the triumphs,
Yeah.
all within one epic performance.
He wasn't afraid to tackle those bigger themes, was he?
No, not at all. And I
Yeah.
think that's part of what made him so appealing.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't just singing about love and heartbreak. He
Yeah.
was reflecting the times, engaging with the social and political landscape.
Right.
Even if indirectly.
Okay, now for a bit of a change of pace, let's talk about Return to Sender.
Return to Sender.
This one's just pure fun,
It is pure fun.
isn't it?
Return to Sender is a classic example of Elvis's playful side.
Yeah?
The lyrics are witty, the beat is infectious,
Uh.
and it's just hard not to smile when you hear it.
I agree.
It's a perfect example of early 1960s pop songwriting,
Okay.
you know, crafted for radio play and aimed right at that teenage audience.
It was written specifically for Elvis for his 1962 film, Girls. Girls.
That's
Girls.
great.
And I read somewhere that he wasn't really feeling inspired during those recording sessions, but this song really energized him.
It's amazing how a song can just lift your spirits.
Yeah.
And Return to Sender, with its catchy melody and lighthearted lyrics,
Yeah.
is a perfect example of that.
It really is.
It became a huge international hit,
It did.
proving Elvis's appeal was still going strong,
Right.
even as the musical landscape was changing around him.
Speaking of changing musical landscapes, we have to talk about how A Little Less Conversation
Oh, yeah.
got a whole new life decades after it was originally released.
That's right. It was featured in the 2001 remake of Ocean's 11,
Oh, yeah.
starring George Clooney and Brad Pitt.
Wow.
And it introduced a whole new generation to this Elvis classic.
And then the Dutch musician Junkie XL, or JXL as he's also known, did a remix of it. And that took the song to #1 all over the world.
It's incredible to think that a song from the 1960s could find new life and new meaning in the 21st century.
I know, it's crazy.
It really is. It's a testament to the enduring power of Elvis's music.
Yeah.
And also to the creativity of contemporary artists
Mhm.
who can reimagine those classic sounds for modern audiences.
It also shows how film and television can play a huge role in reviving interest in older music.
Absolutely.
It's like a whole new way for these songs to find an audience.
It is. And in the case of A Little Less Conversation,
Yeah.
the JXL remix wasn't just a novelty.
Right.
It became a cultural phenomenon in its own right,
Yeah,
topping the charts, appearing in countless commercials and TV shows.
it really did.
It proved that Elvis's music could still be relevant, exciting, and commercially successful even decades after its original release.
Okay, before we move on to some of the other songs on this gold radio list,
Oh.
we have to talk about In the Ghetto.
Oh, In the Ghetto.
It's such a departure from his more lighthearted fare,
It is.
and it tackles a really tough subject.
It does. In the Ghetto is one of Elvis's most powerful and socially conscious recordings.
For sure.
It's a song that tells a story of poverty, crime, and the cycle of despair that can trap people in disadvantaged communities.
Yeah.
And releasing a song like that in 1969 at the height of his fame was a bold move.
It really was. It's a side of Elvis that we don't always see.
Yeah.
The artist who is willing to use his platform to shine a light on social issues.
Right.
And his vocal performance on In the Ghetto is raw, vulnerable, and full of empathy.
It is. You can hear the pain in his voice.
Yeah, you really can.
He truly embodied the lyrics, bringing the story to life in a way that resonated deeply with listeners.
Absolutely.
It showed that he was more than just a singer.
Yeah.
He was an artist who could connect with his audience on an emotional level,
Yes.
sharing stories that mattered even if they were difficult to hear.
You know, we can't really have a conversation about Elvis without talking about his manager, Colonel Tom Parker.
Okay, Colonel Tom Parker, yes.
This guy was almost as famous as Elvis himself.
Colonel Tom Parker was a larger-than-life character.
Right.
A shrewd businessman who played a significant role in shaping Elvis's career.
Yes.
There's been a lot of debate over the years about whether his influence was ultimately positive or negative.
He's definitely a controversial figure.
He is.
Some people say he exploited Elvis, that he pushed him too hard,
Yeah.
and that he limited his artistic potential by keeping him locked into a certain image.
Right. Others say that he was a brilliant manager who helped make Elvis a global superstar.
That is true.
It's a complex legacy, no doubt about it.
It really is.
There's no denying that Colonel Parker was a master of promotion and marketing.
Yes.
He knew how to create a spectacle, and he understood the power of the media.
Mm-hmm.
He was instrumental in building the Elvis brand,
Okay.
making him one of the most recognizable and marketable figures in the world.
But at what cost? That's the question that always comes up.
It's a question that's difficult to answer definitively.
Right.
We'll never know what Elvis's career would have been like without Colonel Parker.
Yeah.
But it's clear that their relationship was a defining factor in his life and his legacy.
A relationship that's still being analyzed and debated today.
Yeah, it is.
Probably will be for years to come.
Probably.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we have.
But there are still some great songs on this gold radio list that we need to talk about.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's start with Big Hunk of Love.
Big Hunk of Love, pure Elvis energy.
It is.
A classic rocker that showcases his powerful vocals and that undeniable charisma.
Yeah, and it was recorded during Elvis's Army service,
That's right.
which was a really interesting period in his life.
It was.
He was away from the stage, away from his fans, but he still managed to create some great music.
He did. It's a testament to his resilience as an artist.
It is.
He could adapt to different environments and still deliver hits.
It's impressive.
It is. Big Hunk of Love is a song that just oozes confidence and swagger.
Right.
It's Elvis at his most playful and seductive.
Another classic rocker that deserves a mention is All Shook Up.
All Shook Up. What a song.
It's got such a catchy beat and playful lyrics.
It does. I read somewhere that the songwriter Otis Blackwell actually got the inspiration for the song from a shaken up bottle of Pepsi.
Talk about finding inspiration in unexpected places.
I know, it's amazing, and it worked.
It did.
All Shook Up topped the charts for 8 weeks in 1957.
Wow.
It's a song that's impossible to resist,
I agree.
with its driving rhythm and catchy chorus.
It's a perfect example of how a simple but effective hook can make a song a timeless classic.
Absolutely. Sometimes the most straightforward ideas are the most effective.
And finally, we have to give a nod to, Marie's the name, his latest Flame.
Okay.
A song that really captures Elvis's early rockabilly sound.
It's a high-energy track with a driving beat and a twangy guitar riff.
Uh-huh.
You can hear the influences of country blues and gospel all blended together in this song.
It takes you right back to the birth of rock and roll, doesn't it?
It does. It's a reminder of that raw talent and energy that made Elvis such a sensation in the 1950s.
It really does.
It's a sound that changed the course of music history.
It did. You know, we've gone pretty deep on this deep dive into Elvis Presley's greatest hits.
We have.
But it feels like we've only scratched the surface.
His catalog is so vast and varied.
It is.
It's impossible to cover everything in one sitting.
I know. Well, I hope this inspires our listeners to go out and explore some of those lesser-known tracks.
Me too. There are so many hidden gems just waiting to be discovered.
Yeah, and as you listen,
Yeah.
think about what it is about Elvis's music that continues to resonate with people of all ages and backgrounds.
That's a good point.
Why is it that even decades after his death, we're still talking about Elvis?
Yeah.
What is it about his music that makes it timeless?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is something, isn't it? The lasting power of Elvis's music.
It's hard to define, but you feel it when you listen.
You do.
There's a certain magic to his music that's hard to put into words.
Right.
Maybe it's his voice, that incredible range and that raw emotion he could convey.
Yeah.
Maybe it's his charisma, that undeniable star quality that radiated from him on stage and on screen.
Right. Or maybe it's the way he blended different genres,
Yeah.
rockabilly, blues, gospel country,
Yeah.
creating a sound that was both familiar and utterly new.
Yeah, it's likely a combination of all those things.
Okay.
But I also think it has something to do with his authenticity.
Uh-huh.
Elvis was never afraid to be himself, to express his emotions, to connect with his audience on a personal level.
He never seemed manufactured or contrived, did he?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Even with all the spectacle and the showmanship, there was always a sense that he was being true to himself, to his roots, to his music.
Okay.
And I think people responded to that.
Yeah, they did. He was also incredibly talented.
Oh, yeah.
Not just as a singer, but as a performer.
True performer.
He commanded the stage like no one else.
Absolutely. He was a natural showman.
Yeah.
He knew how to move, how to engage with the crowd, how to create an experience that was both electrifying and intimate.
Yeah, it's sad that we lost him so young.
It is.
I wonder what other directions his music might have taken if he had lived longer.
It's one of those great what-ifs in music history, isn't it?
It is.
He was only 42 when he died, and it felt like he was just hitting his stride as an artist.
I know.
He was exploring new sounds, experimenting with different styles.
Right.
Who knows what other musical boundaries he might have pushed?
We can only speculate. But it's clear that Elvis's impact on music continues to this day.
It does.
He inspired countless artists, from rock and roll pioneers to pop superstars to country legends to hip-hop innovators.
His influence can be heard everywhere.
It can.
And his music continues to be discovered and rediscovered by new generations.
And that's what makes him a true icon.
He is.
And his legacy will continue to inspire and entertain for generations to come. Well, I think that's a great note to end on.
It is.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into Elvis Presley's greatest hits.
We have. We've talked about his music, his career, his impact, and his enduring legacy.
We've explored the songs that made him a legend, from those early rock and roll hits to those powerful ballads to those energetic stage anthems.
And we've looked at the different phases of his career, from the early days at Sun Records to the Hollywood years to the comeback special to the Vegas era.
And we've touched on some of the complexities and controversies that surrounded his life and his career.
But most importantly, we've celebrated the music.
Yes.
The magic and the enduring legacy of Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll.
Thank you for joining us on this journey.
We hope you've enjoyed listening as much as we've enjoyed talking about Elvis.
Keep exploring his music, keep discovering those hidden gems, and keep the spirit of rock and roll alive.
And until next time, keep on rockin'.